So I think I'm going to answer a different question. I am a buffet diner. There's so many different things that interest me. I want to know what was here before we got here, and how does it all work? And when I got into artificial intelligence, my real mentors were some of the fathers of the field. There's a guy named Marvin Minsky, who I think coined the term, and a fellow named Joseph Weizenbaum, who fashioned himself. He looked very much like the older Albert Einstein, and he firmly believed that making something come alive, making a computer program come alive, was impossible. There's something special about being human that you could not bottle or make a copy of. And so I went back and forth between imagining that we could do it and being completely convinced that we couldn't, and I'm still there. Well, I come from Berkeley, and I have to say that I love our students, and I'll tell you what I love about them, and then we can decide whether we want to generalize for all of Generation Z. But at Berkeley, the students are, first of all, every one of them who is studying computer science and automation and the sciences is concerned about the societal impacts of what they're studying. And I think that's a wonderful thing. It bodes well. It makes me hopeful for the future. And the other thing is that they seem to be glad and grateful to be at the university, and they work very hard, and they're dedicated, and there are some with a great deal of personal maturity. I think there's a lot. The Gen Z has a lot going. I was a bad college student. I just did whatever I wanted, and so I took courses all across the spectrum. If I were giving myself advice, it might be more on the personal side. I was not optimizing for how much money I would make when I graduated, and so I don't think I would give myself that advice either. I don't really have any advice for my college self. I'm sorry. If I were a college student today, I would be concerned with gaining the skills to be able to gain more skills and learning how to learn new things. I think that's really the most important, and so I think I would probably steer clear of a narrow dentistry or automobile repair, and stick with the liberal arts and the sciences and things that we call science. The real science, the science that works whether you believe in it or not, is something that everyone really should learn. My best career decisions have been daring to leave. There were generally cries of how could you possibly do that? This is a great job. When I left Microsoft and when I left Amazon, but the important thing was really going after something that would make me light up, and I found it very comfortable to be in what might be called a sort of country club of a large corporation, but going after those smaller ventures was really it's always been more rewarding to me. If you were optimizing for dollars, probably the worst career decision I made was to leave Microsoft with a small pile of stock options on the table. I was employee number 44, and I think I would have about $1 billion now. So that was a bad career decision in terms of optimizing for getting the maximum amount of money. But I think it might have been a bad decision to go to for example, one of the larger companies in the first place. It's a great question because it's so flattering. I think I've been paying attention, somewhat self-aware, thinking, for myself. And then there's a great deal of luck. And those of your friends and parents' friends who are extremely successful, I think the honest ones will tell you that there's a lot of luck. I happen to be in artificial intelligence. If you asked me about this 10 years ago, I'm in technology. There's nothing special. Now, look at me, you've got people asking me questions on camera. I tend to be a socializer. And so when I have a difficult decision to make, I'll speak to people who I think can help me think about it. And sometimes I'll follow advice, and sometimes I'll throw it away. But I always find that talking to a number of people is really a key part of making a decision for me. I'm going to take a flyer with this one. I already miss having an ephemeral exchange with other people. Being able to say something, express a feeling, and then have it gone. And that was what life was about when 20 years ago. And then something changed, and we were all carrying around, what 15 years ago would have been called a camcorder, and when I send a message to my wife, that is etched in stone and will never go away, on some blotter somewhere at the National Security Agency, and that just gives me a different feeling about life. I happen to be very fond of Ian McEwan, but I'm not sure I would want to recommend that every student read what Ian McEwan writes. I consider a romantic novelist. To bring it back to my field, I happen to really appreciate Gary Marcus's book, Rebooting AI. I think it's a clear-eyed look at what is real about artificial intelligence, and so there's a recommendation for you. And if you want to have the socks scared off of you, then you can read Human Compatible by Stuart Russell, which talks about what happens if we succeed in creating a true general artificial intelligence and why it's important to be very careful.